Good morning and welcome once again to Tiempo. I'm Joe Torres, and we begin this morning with a big change ahead for Puerto Ricans. Starting July 1st, apúntalo, each and every Puerto Rican born on the island will need to apply for a new birth certificate. The move is designed to prevent identity theft and U.S. immigration fraud. And joining us this morning to talk about it, Luis Balzac, Regional Director for the Office of the Governor of Puerto Rico, and a big fan of Tiempo, ¿verdad? ¿Cómo estamos, señor? ¿Todo bien?
Gracias. Thank you for
Good to have
me.
you. What prompted this change, July 1st?
This change is prompted by conversations between the Department of State, U.S.
Department of State.
and the government of Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea, put this into perspective, about 40% of passports in the United States were being generated through birth certificates that come from Puerto Rico.
40% of, oh really? But
Yeah.
but birth certificate, I've got the stat here. The birth certificates for Puerto Ricans, though, were selling, correct, for $5,000 to $10,000 a piece, and account for 40% of birth certificate fraud in the United States. What was happening there? Go ahead.
Let's simplify. About 40% of passports,
Yes. New passports issued.
new passports issued,
Yes.
were originated with birth certificates originating from the island of born Puerto Ricans.
Okay.
So it's important that we create this law to protect the identity of Puerto Ricans and at the same time help with the security issue in Puerto Rico to prevent fraudulent passports.
What was the security issue? I think I know what it is. Were the birth certificates fraudulent, or were the good birth certificates used to obtain fraudulent identities?
Thank you for the question. Yes. Good birth certificates. And let me explain. In Puerto Rico, we have, it's common practice, and I grew up, born, raised in Puerto Rico, common practice that when you're joining a school, summer camp, baseball team, your mom would actually give out a true certified copy of your birth certificate. So what happens
The
is
original.
it's called a
certified copy.
certified copy.
Okay.
So then what happens is that the coach, the summer camp, school, they all end up
Yes.
with certified copies. And the security measures that some of these organizations and entities may not be the type of security measures that you would want for such a confidential document.
And what was happening then?
The result is that you end up with many copies that may be stolen, misplaced, and then you have too many of them. So this law very simply invalidates those old birth certificates by creating the new one. Now these old certificates have no value in the black market.
We missed a step there. With so many copies, valid, certified copies, out in the marketplace on the island, many of them being stolen, what was happening with those stolen birth certificates?
Well, what would happen is that individuals would use them after purchasing them in the black market.
Yeah.
They would use them to get passports and IDs such as that. The problem with that, and the reason why this law is so important, is that the government of Puerto Rico and the governor is protecting those individuals born in Puerto Rico. Because me, born in Puerto Rico, I don't want anybody else taking out a passport under my name and enjoying benefits as a U.S. citizen when they're not a U.S. citizen. So it's important that we protect our identity.
What's the cost of applying for a new birth certificate?
Same cost. It's
Which-
$5.
$5?
That doesn't change. The process won't really change either. It is very simple. Those individuals that are in the United States that choose to get a birth certificate will be able to do it from the comfort of their home. Now, I want to stress something that's probably the most important point that I want to get across here
Go ahead.
tonight. It's important that we understand that not everyone needs to rush and get a new birth certificate. I'll be using myself as an example.
Okay. Well,
I haven't used mine in 15 years.
Yeah.
I haven't used it. The only individuals that need to go get a new birth certificate are those that are in the middle of a transaction, maybe with the federal government,
Okay.
where it's requested for them to show their new birth certificate. And this can be done after July 1st. So let's make sure that we communicate that we don't all need to run.
July 1st, we don't need to be on the computer clicking on the log or the entry.
We won't. I won't be getting one. My wife won't be getting one. My kids won't be getting one because we don't need one right now.
And that was my question regarding my dad. My dad was born in Puerto Rico, in Rio Piedras. He came here in 8th grade, met my mom. That's another story. But he has his passport. He has his driver's license. I don't see any reason or need, unless you can illustrate one for me, that says he's got to run out and get a new birth certificate.
Joe, I can't.
He doesn't,
he doesn't have to. Now, if in the future he needs a new birth certificate, he'll just apply for a new one.
Understood.
He'll get it, and it's very important to mention, because of this law, even though he won't get a new one, his identity will be better protected, because those passports won't be able to be taken out with certificates from Puerto Rico here with his name on it.
Yes. We've got 2 minutes before we get to our break. What is being done to the new birth certificate that makes it less easier to commit fraud? Does it have special code, like currency? Explain it to me.
I haven't seen the new version, but I will tell you what's key here. It's not that there's any magic in the new one. It's that the old ones are invalid. They're different documents. The old ones being invalid, they lose their value in the black market.
And therefore, they can't be sold, and can't be used illegally.
Let's make sure we stress something else. The law clearly states, and it will be written on the birth certificate, that you are not to leave that with anybody. In Puerto Rico, no agency, nobody's allowed to keep your birth certificate. That way we don't get back into the same problem.
Sure. Do I hear you correctly? That's not currently written on the old birth certificates.
Correct.
They're doled out to whoever needs one.
But the new one, to answer your question, what's different? Well, it clearly says, don't leave it behind. This is your birth certificate. This is your confidential document. There is no need for you to be leaving it anywhere.
Guess where it stays? With you.
It's with you. So you only need one.
Okay.
Te quedas con una, and you don't be.
Eso nada más. A couple more questions. We'll come back with more with Luis Balzac, answering questions on the new birth certificates for all Puerto Ricans. Stay with us. More details coming up. Cuando regresamos, I'd like to talk about